Hello. Hi. Here we go. Oh,
Imagine your position in the 1860s. There's a sign located outside of your residence letting others know that a doctor lives there. You're accustomed to opening the door to your home all hours of the day and night for those seeking aid. Now imagine you're that same physician on trial. You, along with 7 others, are tried for the conspiracy to assassinate the president. This is precisely what happened to Dr. Mudd in 1865. Dr. Mudd was one of the co-conspirators sentenced to life imprisonment by a military tribunal, although he would eventually be pardoned and released from prison. To prepare for this speech, I've read multiple books on Dr. Mudd and the other co-conspirators. I also visited Dr. Mudd's house, which is now a museum. In the next few minutes, I will be discussing the events that transpired early that April morning between Dr. Mudd and John Wilkes Booth, the events of the trial, and explain Mudd's time at Fort Jefferson, being pardoned, and the life after being released. At this point, everyone should be aware that it was John Wilkes Booth who shot and killed Abraham Lincoln, but not everyone knows of the events of the others that were tried and convicted. Let's start with the events that occurred on April 15, 1865. At approximately 4 a.m., Dr. Mudd and his wife Sarah were awoke to a knock at their door. There were 2 men standing there. One of them was injured, and one man was accompanying him. Mudd was unaware of who these men were. He would later discover that it was John Wilkes Booth and David Harold. John Wilkes Booth had broken his ankle from leaping from the president's box to the stage at Ford's Theater. After they arrived at Dr. Mudd's house, his ankle was so swollen that the boot had to be cut off. Once Dr. Mudd set Booth's ankle, he then casted it. Later that morning, Dr. Mudd rode with David Harold towards Bryanstown. Harold was looking for a buggy to transport John Wilkes Booth. He became spooked by the police presence, and they then returned to Dr. Mudd's house. Dr. Mudd also allowed the men to stay and rest. The pair headed towards Lakaya Swamp at approximately 12 hours after their arrival. Mudd did not report of these men immediately. He reported it to the authorities on April 17th and with the encouragement of his cousin George. Once the authorities arrived to question Dr. Mudd, his wife Sarah gave them the boot and straight razor, both belonging to John Wilkes Booth. Mudd would then be arrested on April 24th. Following the arrest, he would be taken to Carroll's prison to await his trial by military tribunal. 15 days later, it would commence on May 9th. At the trial, there was no evidence that could implement Dr. Mudd. It came to light that he had knew Booth prior to the assassination of Abraham Lincoln. He claims that he did not recognize him due to the grown-out facial hair. Louis Weichman, a witness, was able to place Dr. Mudd, John Wilkes Booth, and another conspirator at the National Hotel. In Dr. Mudd and the Lincoln assassination, the case reopened. Weichman testified that he was present during this meeting, did not hear all that was said, and did not quite understand all that he did hear. He also confirmed that the 3 men stepped out of earshot for private conversations. Mudd's lawyer also argued that he could not have known about the assassination when Booth had arrived, as he was not listed as the assassin until midday on April 16th, and by that time, the men were gone. It is also theorized that Booth made a last-minute decision to kill Lincoln the morning of April 14th when he learned that he would be at Ford's Theater. When sentencing occurred on June 30th, all were found guilty of the conspiracy to assassinate President Lincoln, Vice President Johnson, Secretary of State Seward, and Lieutenant General Grant. Mudd and 2 others were sentenced to life in prison. Mary Surratt and 3 more were sentenced to death by hanging, and Edward Spangler was sentenced to 6 years. Mudd was also convicted of aiding and abetting the assassin in the execution of their plot. Although Mudd was sentenced to life imprisonment, he escaped death by a single boat. On July 18th, he began his journey to Fort Jefferson on the Dry Tortugas. While imprisoned, he found ways to serve his time, and he would eventually earn a presidential pardon. He picked up work as a carpenter and made chess tables and desks. He learned the different techniques from Edward Spangler. Spangler was a stagehand at Ford's Theater. He also assisted in the yellow fever outbreak. The prison physician needed assistance with others who were sick. He would then contract yellow fever and die himself. Mudd was able to survive the yellow fever and continue helping during the epidemic. He would eventually be pardoned by President Andrew Johnson on February 8, 1869, for the assistance. He was then released from prison in March. After prison, he returned to his farm in Maryland and continued to work there for 14 years. He would then pass away in 1889 due to complications of pneumonia, and he never fully recovered from his own bout with yellow fever. Although Mudd died at the age of 49, a portion of his life is still surrounded in controversy. Did Dr. Mudd recognize John Wilkes Booth? Was he aware of the assassination? These are questions we can only speculate the answers to. The one thing we know for certain is that Dr. Mudd was able to escape life in prison and live out the rest of his days on his farm.